We are ready to paint our crayon sculptures today. So if we look at a real crayon, you'll notice that the wrapper of a crayon is a lighter value, a tint of that color. So we're going to start by painting the tip of the crayon and the back end of the crayon with our actual color. So I am going to start with this dark purple. I'm using that bigger brush, and I'm going to kind of see where I notice that the crayon is starting to become flat, and I'm going to paint a line around it. So that's kind of my stopping point. I just want to paint the top part, this darker value. So as I'm doing it, I'm rotating my crayon to try to keep this line nice and even. And I notice I got all the way around. And now there might be some bumps, some texture spots that you have to problem solve to paint. So if I just go back and forth, I'm missing some spots. I might have to swirl my brush like when we paint clay. I also might have to stamp or dot it to get in those rough textures. So as you notice, this paint is kind of see-through. Right now I'm trying to paint out all those gobs. So this area right here is really wet, I can tell. And I'm going to smooth it out, just rubbing the paint away from it and making sure the paint is nice and thin and there aren't chunks. That's going to help that dry faster so that I can come back and maybe do another coat. A coat is just another layer of paint. I'm going to flip to the back side of the crayon, and I'm going to kind of do the same thing. This back side just needs a little line all the way around. This is about the width of the brush. So I'm using that thick part, not the tiny part, and I'm just rubbing it all the way around. I'm doing the same thing. I'm trying to go over it a couple times to make sure it's getting in all of those textured spots. That makes my artwork look nice and neat, and I've made my way all the way around to my starting point. We also have to paint that back end, that tip part. So I'm going back and forth, smoothing out any gobs of paint. And by the time I do that, this front part, it's still pretty wet. I'm going to try to see if I can put another layer of paint on there. Because our work is 3D today, it has that form, chances are we're going to get a little messy when we're painting because I've got to turn this to get all of those sides. I'm thinking that's looking pretty awesome. I'm going to just check the back end to see if it needs any more paint. Yeah, I think it needs another layer for sure. So I'm going over it again. Our next step is to mix a little bit of our paint color. So I'm going to mix a little bit of my purple in with some white. So I'm going to take a big scoop and I'm going to mix just with a little bit of the white, not all of it. And I'm kind of looking at this crayon as an example. I think that I need a little bit more purple so that the wrapper is just a little darker. I think that looks pretty nice. There's definitely a difference between my mixed purple and the actual purple that came out of the bottle. And then our job is to paint the entire wrapper of this crayon with the lighter color. I'm going to pick it up, move it around. I noticed that it was laying in my oopsies on my messy mat. So I would really encourage you to hold with one hand and paint with the other. It's looking like I might need to mix more paint, which I have plenty of purple and white to mix more. I'm being very careful where these two colors meet, that they don't mix together. I want to keep that a nice line of paint. When you are all done with this step, I'm going to jump ahead and I'm going to show you the last part. The last part is to use the black and to use your skinny brush. And if you look at the top and the bottom of the crayon, you'll notice that black design. It's a little tricky. I'm talking about this area right here. It's a little tricky. There's a wave to it. You can be as simple with this part as you'd like or be really creative and make that wavy part. But I am going to rotate this all the way around. So this would be after my purple's done. I'm going to rotate it all the way around to get some kind of design by the top and by the bottom of the crayon. When you have that done, and you can look at the examples on the smartboard for what a finished project looks like, you're going to go to the store counter to create 2 name tags that will get glued on here when they're dry. So your name tag is your name. It's going to be the name of our crayon. My name is Mrs. C. A finished crayon is going to go on the back counter with your 2 name tags next to it. When your paint is dry, Mrs. C will use a glue gun, hot glue gun, or a glue stick to get those to stay onto your crayon. Looks awesome.